If we're not able to open markets to the United States, we would have to destroy a portion of their potatoes, and it would be very unfortunate, and nobody wants that.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really fascinating story. It starts with, the humble potato, but it quickly becomes a tale about tariffs, trust, and what really happens when a reliable partner just disappears from the menu. And this line from our source material, it really sets the stage, doesn't it? It hints that this isn't just about economics. It's about a relationship that's gone pretty sour. Okay, let's get into it and see what this is all about. So, to really get what went wrong here, we have to first understand just how right things were for a very long time. This wasn't just trade, it was a deep, decades-long partnership between two neighbors. Just look at this number for a second. 350,000 metric tons. Our source says that's how many potatoes Canada sent to the U.S. in 2024 alone. That is a massive amount, powering kitchens and feeding millions, especially across the northern states. I love this description from the source. It really paints a picture. It wasn't just another shipment. It was a ritual, a steady pipeline that powered diners and restaurants, a relationship built on pure reliability for decades. But then, boom, according to the narrative in our source material, a single policy decision made with zero warning changed everything pretty much overnight. And here's the number that really kicks off the whole story: 35%. A tariff just slapped on all Canadian potatoes. And the source makes it super clear this came out of nowhere. No talks, no negotiations, just bam, a new economic wall. So what does a unilateral tariff like this actually mean in the real world? Well, it's one side making a huge move without even talking to the other. Let's take a look at what that did to the price tag on a simple American staple. And here it is. This shows you the impact in the clearest way possible. Citing a USDA food pricing index, the source tracks the price of an order of fries jumping by almost $2. That is a direct hit to your wallet. The source uses this really powerful metaphor to capture how it felt on the Canadian side. See, it wasn't just the tax that did the damage. It was the sudden, silent way it happened. It felt less like a policy disagreement and a lot more like a betrayal. Okay, so let's follow the ripple effect. How did this decision actually play out in the U.S. food system? Well, the consequences were felt everywhere, from the customer's plate all the way to a restaurant's bottom line. And this is where it starts, right? With what people actually experience. This quote from a diner in Wisconsin. It just perfectly sums up the immediate drop in quality people noticed when restaurants had to scramble for new suppliers. And that diner story isn't just a one-off complaint. This slide backs it up with hard data. These numbers, cited from a USDA report, show a big, measurable drop in customer satisfaction all across the states that relied most on those potatoes. And here's the crucial point. This wasn't just about soggy fries. This quote from a restaurant owner, it hits on the absolutely devastating financial impact. Small businesses were forced to either eat the massive cost increase or switch to lower quality spuds. Either way, their profit margins just disappeared. So while American diners are dealing with sad, expensive fries, Canada chooses a really interesting path. Not retaliation, but a quiet, strategic reinvention. They didn't punch back. They just moved on. So instead of a big, loud trade war, the source describes this really smart three-step pivot. First, Canadian suppliers quietly start winding down their U.S. contracts. Second, and this is brilliant, they send their surplus to their own food banks. And third, they immediately start looking for new, more reliable partners across the globe. And this chart here, it really visualizes that pivot in action. You can see how Canada didn't just find one replacement for the U.S. market. No, they diversified. They built a whole new network of trade partners across Asia and the Caribbean. And let's be clear, this pivot worked. It worked in a huge way. The source highlights this number, $1.6 billion. That's the value of new agricultural deals with Asian nations. This isn't just a small change. It's a major, long-term economic shift away from their old partner. So, what's the end result of this whole mess? According to the narrative we're looking at, it's really a story about the incredibly high price of breaking trust. Now, it's really important to say this source is clear. This pivot wasn't some fairy tale. It came with very real, very tough challenges. The logistics were a nightmare. Shipping to Asia cost up to 35% more, and they had to deal with tough new quarantine rules. And crucially, the source notes that while the big exporters did great, a lot of smaller Canadian farms got left behind. And these numbers from the fictional World Trade Monitor cited in the source, they quantify the collapse. I mean, look at that, a nearly 42% drop in Canadian potato exports to the US. This wasn't just a dip, it was a fundamental breakdown of a trade relationship that used to be rock solid. This quote from a policy brief really gets to the heart of the whole thing. The argument is that, yeah, the tariff might have looked like a strong political move at the time, but the real damage wasn't economic, it was reputational. And you just can't fix that kind of broken trust overnight.
And that's really the ultimate conclusion here from the source material. This wasn't about a loud, declared fight. It was about the quiet, slow erosion of trust, and the realization that sometimes a partner who feels taken for granted will just, well, they'll just walk away.
And so this is the final question the source leaves us with to think about. It really makes you consider the true cost of breaking a partnership like this, not in dollars and cents, but in goodwill. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.